Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Biden's anchor performance at the State of the Union last night is a great unifier for the right. It reminds us that we have a common enemy in power who needs to lose, quite frankly. But once that Herculean task is accomplished, the even bigger question becomes who shall lead next? And sadly, the current crop of Republicans, at least when it comes to the Senate, leaves much to be desired. That's why I always say, with supposed friends like these, who even needs Democrats? With Kentucky's Mitch McConnell stepping away from his leadership role after 20 years and leaving it an open question as to whether he'll even run for re-election in 2026, a few names are throwing their hats into the ring for consideration. Texas Senator John Cornyn was the first to announce he was running to replace McConnell as Senate Republican leader, quickly followed by Senator John Thune of South Dakota. The third John, Senator Barrasso of Wyoming, has instead opted to pursue a whip post instead. It's still early, seeing as McConnell won't be stepping down until November, so we could see some other names join in the fray, such as Florida Senator Rick Scott, who previously has launched bids against McConnell. And according to Axios, President Trump has been speaking with Montana Senator Steve Daines behind the scenes for the role. The longtime Trump ally and former advisor Steve Bannon may try and talk him out of that choice after telling his large podcast audience that Daines is McConnell's, well, I can't say the word on air, but his B word. You get the picture. With so much politicking going on behind the scenes, especially with the fight over Daines splitting Republicans, let's not lose sight of just how disastrous a Cornyn Senate Republican leadership tenure would be. Our next guest wrote about exactly that in the pages of The Federalist in a new piece titled, "If you like the Second Amendment, you don't want John Cornyn anywhere near Senate leadership." Joining us now to discuss is the author of that piece, Dr. John Lott, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Dr. Lott, thanks for being here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on, Kara.
Great. So when it comes to why Cornyn should be basically disqualified for this leadership position, does it really come down to this one thing you write about, his willingness that we saw to sponsor and shepherd through laws like the 2022 bipartisan Safer Communities Act, of which we're still dealing with the fallout from?
Right. Well, I mean, it depends how much you care about that versus other issues. I'm sure there's some other issues where Cornyn is good on. But unfortunately, he's been a real disaster with regard to gun ownership. So it was his responsibility to negotiate on behalf of the Republicans the so-called bipartisan Community Safety Act, and he's the one who vouched for it. Parts of that involve things like banning any school that had a hunter safety or an archery class from receiving any federal money. Across the nation, about over 10% of the money going to public schools comes from the federal government. That would have been a real disaster. The Congress, when they realized that that was the implication after the bill had passed legislation to undo that part. But there are many other problems with the bill that's there. One of the things that the Biden administration has been pushing has been this national gun registry. About 2 years ago, it was revealed that they had put together a computerized database of almost 1 billion transactions involving guns. But one of the things that Democrats have wanted for years to try to make that registry more complete is to know about all private transfers of guns or sales. And so they want to have it so that if you give a gun to your brother or to your dad or whoever, you'd have to go through a background check so they'd be able to record that and know who gave the gun and who got it. Unfortunately, one of the changes that the bill that Cornyn negotiated made a change in a definition of what is a licensed firearms dealer. And last fall, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobaccos, and Firearms and Explosives put out a 150-page proposed rule that would essentially make almost all transfers of guns, you'd have to be a licensed dealer. So you'd have to, if I sold you one gun and even talked to you about selling a second gun, then I'd have to go through the process of becoming a licensed dealer.